Hello! So this is just going to be a relatively brief video on my Golem spell that I made. It runs off using only Blockly, which as some people point out is pretty cool. It does make it a bit cumbersome though, and for it to be really effective and like interesting, you have to run it at a sort of an impossible amount of mana. It does work without an impossible amount of mana. It's just tricky to get it up there, but it does work. So there is that. So it does count as a spell contest thing or whatever. So it's like a legal spell. Like hacking the game files to give yourself more mana is obviously not a legal thing to do, but that's okay. So what this spell does is it has these two parts, Golem Control and Golem Limb. The Golem Control part is the torso, and it sort of acts as a origin and things like that. It tracks its own number of like how many limbs the golem has acquired when it's trying to acquire limbs and things like that. And then the actual limb itself has way more code than the torso does, due to the fact that each limb sort of has to become an independent limb with its own special number, so that it knows whether it's the head or the arm or the leg or the other leg or anything like that. So let's just give this a try. I've already made... Actually, let's make sure I did the mana correctly in there, because sometimes I... Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Sometimes I forget to do the mana incorrectly. Cast spell, 200 mana. Yeah, so normally you only have 200 mana, so this would not work. So I'm going to cast this Golem Control spell. It latches onto a rock, and then you basically have these 5 limb orbs that start rotating around it. And this is not going to work. Well, it will work, but it's not going to have 5 stones, just due to the fact that the limbs are done incorrectly. So essentially what it does is these 5 pieces around the edge each go and try and latch onto something. If we can get them one day to communicate, hey, Orb 2, don't crash into that rock, that's mine, that would be awesome, because you could just chuck it at a pile of rocks and it would turn into a golem, and you wouldn't have to worry about them all latching onto the same rock. But they make this shape. There's the head, these are the arms, these are the legs, there's the body. And it follows you around, so that's pretty cool. Beyond that, it doesn't actually do much yet, but it's pretty cool for it to be able to talk to all these other blocks and assign them values and things. I just killed that. It's got a built-in like destroy command. See, it did it again, so that's definitely an issue. Hopefully we can get that addressed in a future update. So there's 1. There's 2. Whoop. There's 3. There's 4. And there's 5. So the issue that happens here sometimes now is that due to how much mana it takes to broadcast things, as you say, is it prevents me from going anything more than like 20 meters, because you just run out of mana due to issues like that. Look, it'll even give me a stair to stand on, that's cool. So that's why this orb didn't latch onto it, because I was more than 20 meters away when I was over here. So that's all the issue with that is for the minute. But it'll still follow you around, it'll still act like it just is missing an arm. So if you... Yeah, I don't know, whatever. So that's that. And then, so let's just look through how these spells work for a moment. So the Golem Control spell... Oh dear, I just changed something. I don't think that even matters. That rotation doesn't matter. Because as soon as... Wait, what is this? Golem Control? Yeah, I don't know, whatever. I'll figure that out in a second. So when it's created, it sets up these default values. If you see my other one, you know what this has rock thing is. It's so the orbs don't start making elastic connections to other rocks when they crash into them. This current limbs is to do with having the torso track how many limbs the golem has acquired. The first thing that generally happens then is it smacks into a rock. If it's a rock, totally do this stuff. So stop when you hit the rock, make an elastic connection. You have a rock now. and then it tries to start doing these, yeah, so I don't need either of these. So what this was supposed to be, it was going to fire out these golem limbs in a... Ooh! Never mind. I might have screwed it up, actually, by changing that degree earlier. Essentially what this does, it is, no, it's alright. It ensures that the orbs all go out in different areas, and it doesn't just shoot 5 orbs in a straight line, then lock them all onto the same orbit around the creator orb, and have them going in a perfect circle all on top of each other. Because then you'd only have 5 orbs attached to one rock at a time. So they have to be spaced out using something like this, where it spreads them out, and then, okay, so let's look at this golem limb. So it makes these 5 golem limbs. So when these golem limbs become created, same sort of deal. It's got a lot more things to keep track of. I don't know what that time is in there. I'm gonna have to go back and edit the, I'm gonna edit some stuff. So there's no need for it to track time. That was something I found out as well. If you have any questions about Blockly and things like that, I found a lot of stuff out doing this, and like how time is tracked and how rotations are tracked and things like that. I know they're quaternions, and or however you say it, and that's like the technical term for how rotations are tracked in this, but if you face it one direction and then face it the other direction, there's a certain way it'll turn and stuff, and you can talk about that. Yeah, so it creates, so when this golem limb becomes created, they sort of start, they head out there, and then it has this OnHit thing. So as soon as they're created, they're going to travel in a straight line away from the center, which is why when you launch the control spell, oh my god, that was pitiful. You launch the control spell, they swing out for a second, and then they start that orbit. So that half second before they start to like actually orbit is due to this OnHit thing. So the OnHit prevents the limbs from attaching onto the rock that they spawn inside. And all this OnHit does is say, okay, after half a second, OnHit is true, and you should start spinning around. So that OnHit is part of the OnHit function. So as long as hit is okay is true, so as long as you're allowed to hit stuff now, it's been after the half second when you were inside the rock, then you're good. Otherwise, you'd create it, and then OnHit would activate as soon as you were inside the rock you spawned inside, so that wouldn't do very well. We have the same sort of if statement. So you have this thing spinning around out here, it crashes into other stuff, and it starts latching onto these other rocks. That might actually have worked now. Oh my gosh. Wow, that just worked straight off. So that was impressive. So there's 5 rocks here, so it's all worked correctly. There's the torso, there are the arms, there's the head. That actually looks pretty good right there. It normally looks like he's pointing. Hello, hello Golem. My Golem. He fights for me. It is good. Yeah, so when they do this OnHit thing, Golem limb, they get the OnHit, they start, you have to set their speed. So part of the OnHit is that you don't want the orb to keep rotating, to keep orbiting around the torso after it's attached onto the rock, because the other orbs will attach onto that same rock that's spinning around from the other one now, and they'll all get stuck on the same one. So what this sort of section here ensures is that the orb, once it's found a rock, will set its speed to medium and break out of the orbit. So that's why you see them sort of fly away for a second once they crash their rock, and that's so they get out of the way so the other ones can find theirs. It sets its rock to true and all that. It does a broadcast of have rock. Now this have rock tells all the other rocks over here. So if it gets a message that says have rock, it increases this limbs found. So all of the golem limbs will be tracking how many limbs they have, and that have like limbs found function or variable will increase every time someone says have rock, up until they all have a rock. So that's good. and then it sets its limb number to the limbs found. So the first rock, when it hits something, is going to have 0 plus 1 is going to be 1 for limbs found. So it's going to set its own personal limb number to 1. And then the next one will have crashed into a rock. It'll be 1 plus 1, so we'll have 2. And the second rock will set its limb number to 2. And that comes into play later when trying to decide which one's where do they go for the arm and the head and things. And then it does this look at creator thing. This is sort of tied onto this section up here, which is basically it looks at the creator, but looks the opposite direction and flies away. So it's part of that get away from the center orb so the other ones can find their thing. And then this is just to do with broadcasting and things like that. So when they all have their rock, so all 5 rocks have been found, so the 5th one finds its rock, says, I found my rock. So all the other spells are going to see, hey, so we had 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. They're going to see, oh, I received message, have rock. And now limbs found equals 5. So we should do this thing here. Well, the rock that is the 5th rock, that broadcasts that final have rock broadcast, can't hear its own broadcast. So you have to tell it, yo, if you're number 5, you don't hear your own broadcast, so you just need to go out there and go for it. If you're not number 5, so essentially if you're not the last rock, after you've done all this flying away stuff, you need to stop flying away after a little bit, because otherwise they'll just fly off into the middle of nowhere, and your golem's gonna be disintegrated across the world. And then this head thing is just to make the head glow and spin and stuff. That's what this is. So this set origin thing is the next part. So this is all the alignment for how the golem keeps its shape. So it travels. Every orb travels to the center of the. Okay, so they're all inside the torso. Basically, all the orbs travel inside the torso, but they're all facing different directions. And this 2-second delay gives them all time to go from wherever they are into the middle. Then they have 2 seconds to get there. Then after 2 seconds, they have to align, which is over here, I think. And what this align then is they're still in that orbit. That's a 0 radius orbit, so they're all in the center. It breaks the orbit, but now they're all just sitting on top of the same point, looking all random directions. They look at me, so now they're all sort of facing the same way, and then when they look up again, they've all gone through the same 2 sets of rotations, which means they're all oriented exactly the same way now. Then, if you can essentially use their own individual limb numbers times this 72, which is that 1/5 of 360 degrees, that's why I used that 72 in the other ones, so they were all evenly spaced apart. That will get them all to turn, so that's 72 times this times 1, because it doesn't let you input a variable for in here. That allows each one to go out a certain, face a certain distance, and then travel that way slowly for half a second until this next part. And then, after that next part is fired, they have to stop, and that's just so you don't get issues with, they sort of jump if they're in an orbit, but their speed is set to fast, because they think they're supposed to be moving, but the orbit demands that they not move a certain way, so there's sort of a little bit of an error in there. Yeah, so essentially that's why they then float at this distance 1 per out, but they don't move, because I set the time for some really large value that is going to take them 1,000 seconds to go in a complete circle, so that's why they just sort of look like they sit there. Now, if I had set the speed of that thing, instead of being fast, or instead of being stopped after I broke the orbit to fast, you would see these orbs jittering back and forth a lot, especially when it moves around like this. They wouldn't be moving in nice straight lines like that. They'd have a lot of jitter as they walked across, but they'd still make it. Yeah, so that's how this Golem control spell works. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy CodeSpells. If you haven't seen my other CodeSpells video, you should definitely go check it out. And that's it. I hope you guys have a great day, and everybody does well at everything they do, and all of that jazz.